Good morning. A couple things are going to be a little bit different today. First off, you probably noticed right away, not my car. Also, not moving. Now, basically, it's Sunday. I've taken my wife out of town for a craft show. Don't really feel like driving home an hour and a half to drive back an hour and a half. So, I've got some time to kill. Rather than sitting in there drinking coffee, I'm going to sit out here and have a chat with you about Changling. Yes, I actually can have the book in front of me, or as close to a book as we get nowadays. Before we get started, though, I'm going to go ahead and show you the new intro, and then I'll be back with you. We'll have a chat. Alright, we are back. Hopefully you enjoyed that. We'll probably be seeing it for a while now, so, well, if you didn't like it, get used to it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start just working through this book, and it is quite a big book, about 400 pages, and discuss aspects of changelings as the book hits them. So the order might be a little bit disjointed, but I'm sure we'll get to everything in the end. So, starting off very early in the book, we start to understand the barest glimmer of what a changeling is. So, to give a very short bit of history, we'll get into a bit more depth later on. Long ago in the distant past, the dreams and the dreamers shared this world. And the world was very malleable. Nothing was set in stone. This is why, at least according to the changeling view of the world of darkness, this is why we have so many histories that don't match up. Because the reality of one part of the world and the reality of a different part of the world were not set in stone. They did not have to be the same. From place to place and from moment to moment, reality was malleable by the people experiencing it. And this is where you have the ancient stories of dragons on Earth, or magic, the very early form of magic, which actually in Mage today, again, is enforcing their will on the consensus. Basically affecting their dreams into reality. It all kind of ties together. But basically what happened is, as time passed, as the dreamers, the mortals of the world, began to map their world, began to write down information about their world, began to see their world as a solid thing to be quantified. The dreams had to retreat from this. This new force entered the world called banality, which is the bane, hence the term, of all Fae. A Fae subjected to banality, a dream subjected to banality, fails. It dies. So what you have is this force of dreamers stopping dreaming and instead reasoning. Well, yeah, we used to say we could do anything, but really what we found out is we can only do this. That's a very small form of succumbing to banality. Succumbing to the everyday, average life is just what it is, and that's how it's always going to be. Monotony that destroys changelings. Or, sorry, at this point, destroys Fae. I'll get into the difference there in a minute. So, all of this begins to occur, and it finally culminates around the time of the Black Death, the Plague, when not only now are people quantifying their world and not dreaming about all the amazing things it could be, instead they're just seeing what it is, now all of a sudden, thousands of people are being wiped out, killed. Families are being torn apart. And that little bit of dreaming that was still there died out. People stopped dreaming when all they were hoping to do was maybe survive. And the dreaming world and reality had been pulling further and further apart. Whereas they used to be intertwined, all of a sudden they had been pulled separate. And with the Black Death, the paths into the dream began to close. And some of the Fae realized that there was a problem. The nobility of the Fae realized there was a problem. And because most of them still had freeholds, they had territories on Earth, in reality, not within the dreams. They had what they called freeholds, which were places where the dream and reality overlapped. And the Fae, the Sidhe especially, began to realize the problem. And the Sidhe left the commoners and basically told them, watch the freehold for us, keep it safe, take care of it, we'll be back. And most of the Sidhe retreated to Arcadia, which is basically the capital city of the dreaming, the largest and most amazing, most powerful, most everything city in the dreams. And as it continued to get worse and got worse, all of the paths finally closed. The doors to Arcadia were sealed. And the commoners looked around and realized that they'd been left on their own. And banality was creeping at the door. And huge numbers of the Fae commoners began to die off. Just like the Black Plague wiped out large portions of humanity, the banality plague lopped out huge numbers of Fae. And that was when they realized they had to do something different. They had to change. And it's not really made clear who or how or when, but before they were all wiped out, they managed to develop something they called the Changling Way. And the Changling Way took a Fae dream and tied it intrinsically to a human soul. And it merged the two. And the resultant being, this was not a Fae taking over a human. This was a combined being. This was a new creature that shared the hopes and the dreams and the desires of both original beings. For anyone who's ever watched Star Trek Deep Space Nine, if you think of the Trill, you have the Trill and you have the host, but when they combine, it changes both of them, and they become one. That's what the Fae did when they created the changelings out of themselves. And so you have these eternal beings, these immortal Fae, who are using this process to become changelings because having that mortal body protects them from the worst of the banality. It allows them a retreat. The mortal form can soak up a lot more banality than a Fae. And so the Fae can basically hide within that shell and be protected as a changeling. And then when the mortal body dies, the Fae soul departs and links to another soul. Now the problem with this is that although the Fae main leaves and lives on, oftentimes the soul that they will connect to is not ready for that. And they could lay dormant for years until finally some moment, some spark of dream awakens that mortal, and they enter what's called the chrysalis and the dream dens, and their Fae self introduces itself to them, and the two merge and join, and what comes out the other side of the chrysalis is the new changeling. Yeah, so I'm going to leave it at that one for this video. Went on probably a little bit longer than I thought I was going to for the first one, and we'll pop on to the next video in a few minutes and continue.